Hello. So originally I was hoping to be live in Taitung to give this talk, but unfortunately we're now all staying home and being safe. So this is going to be a virtual talk. I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. Just a shame that you can't ask any questions, but well, we'll see how it goes. I'm going to become a bit smaller here, so otherwise I can't really show our work nicely. So let's start. So first things first, of course, hello, my name is Felix. I'm from Germany, from Munich in the south of Germany, close to the Alps, where I grew up and studied. And then I moved to Spain for a year to do an exchange course in Valencia. From there, I started working and then got a second job in Paris, where I lived a few years as a senior designer of a design studio. And I got a bit bored by life in France and how they do design, so I was looking for a challenge. So I thought, which is the best place to go for design, which is London, in my opinion. There's so many studios there, and there's a lot of competition, so you cannot just sit on your sofa and do nothing. You really need to be at your game to compete with everyone else. And this is where I met my wife, Keira, which was my colleague at the time. And then, well, as things went, I just got takeaway to Taiwan, where we opened our studio first in Tainan and then in Taipei the last 3 years. So in total, I'm in Taiwan, I think, close to 8 years. 8 years. So we both traveled a lot. I mean, lived abroad. Keira lived in England for 8 years. So we all, of course, speak English, and I speak German, of course, French, Spanish, and Chinese, and then my wife speaks some Japanese. So we always we have a lot of different perspectives and due to the place where we lived and our experiences. So this is kind of our USP in a way. We kind of build bridges from like Western culture to Eastern culture, and because we understand both, so we can also offer a new way of seeing a thing from the outside, which is also the topic of my talk later. So this is a few of our customers. It's a bit bigger names. In England, there's lots of museums like British Museum, Foster & Partners, National Portrait Gallery. In Germany, it was more like heavy industry and automotive. In France, a bit of fashion, banks and lawyers and such. And then in Taiwan, suddenly everything became food. As you know, food is very popular here. So what our studio does is mainly our specialty is branding and visual identity. So for that, we also do some strategy and sometimes naming for companies, print and editorial design, packaging, signage and exhibition design, website, and of course all the print production and everything to get it actually done. Now let's get started to the topic. So when you study, like you think, oh, now I'm going to study design, I'm going to do lots of nice things, and you play a lot around and do lots of interesting projects. But then once you get into the real world, you find out that it's actually not that easy. You thought, oh, I'm going to be happily designing forever after. But actually, the time spent designing is like this small, like on the top part of this pen. And this is the time convincing, educating a client to actually accept the design that you did. So this is something that in my time, I don't know if it is any different now, but no one really teaches you how to actually sell your design. It's not enough to, we found it's not enough to just do good design. I mean, a lot of people do good design, but the difference is how can you sell it? Can you sell what you're doing? Can you actually bring the idea across? It's not automatic that everyone will accept your design by default. So what's actually a designer's task? From my view is, what's the added value? What is more? What can you give more to the client that he in addition to design? So for me, it's like identify a problem. So you need to first find out what does the client need, what is the issue, what can be optimized. So you first need to identify the task and the problem, and then you can solve it. And then you add something more, you add perspective, you add your own perspective of the problem. It's not just enough to do what the client tells you, you need to also maybe give him something in addition. He can find another designer for that, but if you have something else to give, then you're going to have added value and have more chance to get more jobs. So this brings me to the next thing. You need to always, as a young designer or any designer, question yourself. You need to question yourself and you question your design. You cannot be happy too quickly with what you're doing. For example, if someone comes to you and says, "Oh, I want to have something French, I want something like Paris," and I ask, "What's Paris like?" And then most people will show you something like this, like this is Montmartre, very nice tiny roads and cafes, it looks all very romantic. Okay, that's Paris, but that is also Paris. It's just next door. It's just if you go around the corner, it's like suddenly everything's very run down and there's a bit dodgy and there's graffiti everywhere. And so there's always more sides to one place except the cliche. So you always need to dig deeper in your research when you do a design project and find out what is the perception of a place or of something really the reality, or is there more to it? So question and re-evaluate what you're doing, always. Second is the impression that something gives. Like, for example, here you see if Louis Vuitton looks like 7-Eleven, that's of course not the right impression that brand needs to give. On the opposite, if like 7-Eleven looks like Gucci, that is also not right. So you need to also be authentic. You need to see if what you're doing as a designer, does it actually fit the product or the personality or the company or the values of the company. You cannot go too far from the reality. You cannot just make something luxurious which is actually cheap. It is always going to be coming out at some point. So you need to like stick as close to the reality as possible. Of course, always trying to make it a bit better, but you cannot go too far. Also not make it worse. So you also don't want to make a good product look like it's cheap. So you always need to be true to yourself, authentic. And the next problem as a designer we're facing is how do we stand out among all this? Like, there's so many people doing design. There's so many people doing good design. There's so many people doing not so good design. And there's just so much information going on everywhere, visually and also acoustically. Everything is noisy and loud these days. So you need to find a way how to position your design next to other people's. And how can you manage to stand out? So how do you stand out? You need to be different, of course. If you're the same, then of course you're just me too, and you're not going to be able to help your customer to sell their product or to give them visibility if they're just looking like the next one. So you need to be different and stand out. And then one way to do that is just to strip away what's not essential. So a lot of times you see designs which are very crowded and a lot of things going on, but you kind of make your message blurry. So it's always essential to stick to what is essential and then add a little more, but less is always more in my view. So that was a bit of like theory for young students and beginners to actually frame the talk. And now I want to show with examples how I see this in our work, how we try to add perspective to our projects from our experiences, and how we try to make something different than other people, and how we try to help stand the design out so it can be a successful project. We just start with less is more. Caffeine is a coffee chain mainly now in Taipei. They started with a few shops and they're getting more and more, which had a very unique proposition. They have coffee beans, they're sourcing coffee beans, and wanted to do their own outlet for those beans. And they wanted to do a unique concept. They wanted to always collaborate with other artists or other brands or other people. So the task was, you need something original, but it should be very simple and easy, so you can always put the collaborating illustrator or designer next to it without creating any conflicts. So we thought about something very simple. Just use black and white, very simple logo with that exclamation mark as a kind of stopper, and just play with the typography and always try to include that exclamation mark. So this is the basic identity look. We were all very clean and black and white and simple. They had this dog has a story. The first shop had this fire axis outside, and of course it can't be painted, it can't be moved, it has to be there. So this is like regulation. So we said, okay, we need to do something there so it looks a bit nicer, and at least it makes people maybe take a picture or something. So we thought, okay, let's just put a dog there. We create a dog out of those exclamation mark elements. Very simple, and now every new shop has one of these dogs somewhere, so it became kind of a mascot. And we can play with it from the season. This is for Christmas, you just become Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or you do a Christmas tree with the elements of the typeface. So it's easy to, if it's something is simple and clean, you can always easy to change it and modify it and play with it and do other things with it. Like it's Valentine's Day, he gets a little girlfriend, and yeah. So it's always good to have something simple, because simple is always easy to use. The more you make something complicated, more difficult you're gonna have to later do other things with it. This is some more other project, and you can even can make some cookies. So if it's simple enough, it can become a cookie. So this brings me to the first collaboration, was with Philip Pagowski, the designer for Comme des Garçons, that heart t-shirt you see on the top there. He was the first I collaborated with, and he designed this moon visual. And second one he did was he played with the exclamation mark and did it in his style, some different versions of that. So kind of playful, and this you can see how it's easy to like add this onto the existing design. Or is the third one was Toy Story for the anniversary of the franchise. So same thing. You can really use this simple design and use some colors and play with those Disney Pixar characters. So it's, and here you can see it was also part of the Pagowski one, in which he designed some alphabet, and you can use those alphabet stickers to create some messages on your cups. And this was a pop-up shop in Mitsugoshi, Shingi. So you can see it's like very simple, but no matter what the other illustrator does, if it's a fancy style or simple style, it's always easy to combine with this kind of simple things. And this was some drip-on coffee packagings. And another Toy Story window. Okay, so messages like strip away what is not essential. The second product is Don't Be a Cliché, is Chamonix. Chamonix is probably quite known in Taiwan. It's the Wow Prime group, one of the very old brands of them. And it looked like this, and it got a bit in its ages, and they thought they want to update it and make it more fresh and new and try to attract the next generation of customers. And now we come back to the perspective and France, because Chamonix, they always wanted it to be like French romantic, and that was their idea of French romantic place. But of course that's not really French, at least not for me. So they asked us to do a redesign, that's the starting point, and then this became this. So basically we just work with some type inspiration we found. Like in France and Paris, you always find this kind of signage for like traditional brasseries and cafes, and we try to use something type-based to make this kind of more European, because everyone knows Chamonix now. They don't need to use the Chinese characters so prominently anymore. Everyone knows it now, so we can emphasize the Latin type characters. And you always need to have some sort of continuity, so we kind of kept that swoosh there, that pink swoosh, and then it's still there in gold now in the corner. And then we create business cards, and also got rid of the pink, so it's becoming a bit more elegant. Gold, blue, of course, you need to keep the blue, slightly change another tone of blue to make it a bit more subtle. And then you see here some layout of that's the new style. We also keep that tiny badge they had before. Now it becomes a golden badge, but you can still find some things from before. And we also supervise a photo shoot to make new pictures for their dishes. You can see here, that's that badge I was talking about before. They always had this badge in the corner on the marketing material, so we kept that badge, but in a different way, an updated version. So you can see it's all becoming a bit more harmonious. And then because it's a big group and they have a lot of shops, so we need to do like a systematic of the signage systems. How do they create their signs, and how can the in-house team create all the signages and things they need? So we have to do a like guideline to show them how to do everything. Yeah. That's the menu. Photo shoot pictures. So this was a case of question your perceptions, like what you might think is French or typical. Paris is maybe not so typical, so try to adjust it a bit. The next one is also linked to France. This is real chocolate. Here is a chocolate shop in Taipei, which has a very interesting Chinese character, which means in English a field in the mountains that has been nourished for 3 years, capable of growing any crop. That's the Chinese meaning. Apparently very rare character. So I thought that is quite interesting, this kind of name. So this field actually looks a bit also like a triangle. Like imagine it's a triangle like that chocolate he said. This is the main product, the tiny bonbons, about this size. Nice chocolate, all artisanal and handmade. And he studied in France, so he wanted to have a like French-inspired brand. And his goal was to open a shop in Paris. And he's almost there. We met him like since we started, almost like 7-6 years. And every year he got closer to his goal. He got invited to the chocolate salon in London first for a few years, and then got invited to the one in Paris, and then I asked him to open a shop there. But then Corona came, so that plan is on hold now, unfortunately. But he determinedly got closer to his goal. Anyway, going back to the chocolate, that's the chocolate, which is also simplified to looks like a diamond in perspective, this kind of shape, which initials are U, Y, and U. Together become like a shield. You add that diamond on top, which is in this case the chocolate and that tiny field, which is golden because it has so many crops. So that's the whole meaning in there. And then you add a classic European typeface, and you have the brand. And then because his chocolate is expensive and it's more like jewelry, so he said, okay, if I sell my chocolate this expensive, I also need to look expensive. I can't just put a cheap box and then people say, why is this cheap box so expensive? But if I see this kind of box, then I see, okay, that must be expensive. That must be good quality. So we designed some boxes which are like cardboard and covered in paper and different papers and ribbons and foiling and gold foiling and all these kind of things to also help show outwardly in the packaging how good the chocolate is, and that this is a quality product that you need to be prepared to spend some money for. And then we did a whole first round of packaging. So they had some cake boxes, some smaller pastry boxes. We designed some ribbons and smaller ribbons and tiny plastic sheets with another layer to protect the chocolate. So it was a lot of like items to be done, and he really understood that you need to spend some money to also give that right impression. You cannot just sell expensive and then don't spend any money on it. That doesn't work. So he understood this concept very well. So it was a very nice product to work with, and we're still working together. This is the first set, like the larger bonbon boxes, smaller bonbon boxes, pastry boxes, business cards, bags. And they have an in dining menu with some, you can drink some hot chocolate and some other things. And then every season we got new packagings, fresh spring cakes, and then autumn. So it's constantly an ongoing project. Every season there's new things to be done. And you have all the festivities, the Moon Festival, you have Christmas, you have Valentine's Day, you have Qixi, you have the Japanese Valentine's Day, and you have Chinese New Year. So every year you have at least those few holidays, and then you have other special occasions. So we always try to keep those initial design elements in there. Like you always have that diamond shape somewhere. Even on this one, this was a Qixi one, and Qixi has those star constellations, those two, the princess and the shepherd. They're actually a star constellation, and that actually looks like a diamond. You can see on this glossy hologram foil, it's actually still a diamond shape, but that's the actual star constellation of Qixi. Yeah, you can see Altair and Vega. So we always try to find something that has a meaning. We just try not to just do something because it's pretty. Should be normal, because no one is going to ask you to do something ugly, but it needs to have some meaning. And then some Valentine's boxes, it's more traditional style. And then another Valentine's Day, which the concept we found was like, you melt my heart. So it's like a thermometer, and the temperature is rising when you give love, and it become hot. And then inside the chocolates are actually, part of them are red and part of them are in chocolate. So this is a nice play with those words and that concept. So you need to look the part. You cannot just pretend to be something you're not. And if you want to be someone, then you need to also be prepared to spend some money on it and to spend time to find the right people to do it and work with professionals. The next one is Think Differently, Mr. Meat. Mr. Meat is a hot pot shop in Taipei, and his concept was he wanted to have the best meat from all sort of different countries, like Hungarian woolly pig, and then Iberico, and all these things. So his topic was all about the meat, and I want to show the good meat. But meat, it looks like this, that if I show this is not going to be very nice. So we thought, what do we do? How do we show meat without being disgusting? So then I thought about this. This is actually coming from this year. This is Italian marble paper. And Italian marble paper, I was researching, I found that some of them, it looks like meat. If it has the right color, those textures, these marble effects, they look like meat. So we developed a design using all these meat patterns on the back, and then use a very simple typeface logo on the front to compensate for the complicated background, and then just play with that. So it's a very simple concept. And the business card is also of different meat cards for the shop cards and the cards of the owner and the manager and all these things. And it's just like sometimes you need to do something differently. Just don't show the normal hotpot calligraphy and traditional Chinese style, but maybe something else. Next one is going down south to Tainan. Hoxinhao. This looked like this. This was a very successful and established shop, and then they closed for a few years because they were tired and wanted to take a break, and then they wanted to open again for the next generation. I said, but we don't want to have this kind of like street stand anymore and sit in the heat the whole day. We want to have something a bit with air conditioning and something nicer, so the old parents don't have to sweat all day for selling the fish soup. but they still wanted to keep something in from their old shop. So we developed this kind of aesthetic, and then you might think that looks familiar. The inspiration was actually this kind of fish food bags have this very particular way of using colors and how they set the type and what kind of typeface they use. So we try to take inspiration from that to make something very local, but in a modern way and in a fresh way and still elegantly looking. So kind of use the whole thing for the whole identity, like the business card, these different colors. And that's, on the bottom you can see the shop with a big fish on the wall and some details and bowls and the traditional like ordering sheets all in this kind of pink colors. And this is how this soup looks. And you can always do more with that. You can use other fish or other colors and play more with it. This one got some mention from the TDC, by the way. And then that's the curtain to the kitchen. So also need to be authentic. You cannot just suddenly make that fish shop looking like a Japanese one, because it's not. It's a very Taiwanese traditional fish soup shop, and it should also look like one. It shouldn't look like something it's not. Staying in the south, Ninao Gelato. This is one of our very first projects, actually. This is the boss, and this is the shop he wanted to open. This is in Anping. He was very famous first with this Japanese soft ice cream, and then one of the first to do that, and then went to Italy to study gelato. So he wanted to open a second shop, Ninao Gelato, which was, of course, Italian, and then that shop is in Anping. So when I came to Taiwan, I was like driving. I lived in Thailand for 3 years, and then I drive around, and then I was asking, what's those weird things? And then it's like, I didn't notice. And there's those like sword lines. Anping has this sword line, which is like a protector of evil spirits, and always has this sword in the mouth. And so I should combine it with Italian line, because the gelato is from Italy and that shop is in Anping, so combine the sword line from Anping and the Italian line together to get something like this. So this is the Italian style Anping sword line, and then you use all these like medieval drawings and redraw them, and you add some details, more local details like typical old school houses, or you can see the typical bird from Anping with the spoonbill, and then you see the water buffalo, and there's always some ice creams, of course. And it was like blending those two cultures together to also reflect the concept of the shop, like very local Anping, very established Tainan brand, Tainan people, but with the new flavor from Italy. And this is you can see the menu board and the cups, and takeaway belt, and then even extend that to the shop and the signage, like signs for no shouting and no pets, and always trying to not use like regular icons, but always draw our own based on that concept. And it was like offering the perspective, like from someone who's never been, not grown up in this country. I saw this kind of weird thing happening. I made this connection, but maybe someone who's lived his whole life in Hainan wouldn't have thought about it. I don't know. But that's this kind of thing you need to always think about. What can you offer from your perspective that no one else can, because maybe someone is too close to it or doesn't even notice it. Staying with ice cream, this one is in Taipei, W, which is actually W, which is French for W. W in French is W, and because the chef is called Wilson. He was also studying in France. He was a pastry chef, and he wanted to open a shop that's very happy, and like ice cream is something like a family affair. So I was thinking about this kind of French beachside houses. They always have these tiny cabins. You can change your clothes, or you can have a chair in it and put your stuff in it. And they always have this kind of stripy patterns in like blue and red. So we use those for the ice cream cups and for the rest of the identity. So this is the logo with the D and a V, a double B, and Wilson on his personal business cards, and then the whole thing came together like this. So you can see some ice lolly packaging and the takeaway. We used tried to not use plastic bags, so we developed a kind of like cardboard flap you can wrap around 1 or 2 boxes and then take away without having a plastic bag. And then also developed this kind of flavor wheel icon, so there's like sour and nuts and tea and wine, so they can also play with that to have the stickers on the cup or on their menu board that can indicate what kind of flavor is this ice cream. Because they have every week they have like 10 or so different flavors, so it's a lot of different things. And then use all these elements we developed, the stripes and those icons to create promotions, like for Halloween, and then there was a week where we did only black ice cream, and then there was coffee week, it's more obvious, and then there was a dragon boat matcha week, so we did a dragon, and yeah. And so the point is like emphasize the message. So he wanted to open a happy shop, a colorful shop, so we emphasized this to the maximum to get him a lot of room to play with this kind of elements. The same shop owner then wanted to open another shop, which is more French, more elegant, more like afternoon tea, more sophisticated ice creams, not like takeaway normal ice cream, but like in a glass, in a parfait, it's called in French, like a glass dessert with ice and other tiny cookies and crumbles and nice things. And this is called 2D, like 2D again, double. And 2D means like 2 and sweet, so twice as sweet. It's also because it's the second shop, so it has a lot of like cross meanings. And here we got inspired also by French pastry shops and how they do their signage in France and in Paris. But of course in a more modern way, so we created something like this, which is like a nice looking European typeface, and we add the descriptions, and the whole thing together becomes an identity. And this is like a parfait, you can see, which we created based on that tiny pictogram, which is again the DD and the V, and there's even the double V is also in there because it's the cone. So again, we always try to find some cross meanings and added meanings and hidden meanings, so to make it more interesting. You can see some impressions from the shop interiors, and also selling some cookies and other things, affogato, and he's always trying to put a twist on like classic desserts or like classic cake or tiramisu, but making it with ice cream. Menu, which it's a bit difficult to show, is a transparent paper we print on and wrap it around a cardboard menu, so you get a kind of double layering and very subtle effects. And the same, the business card had this special paper, when you emboss it, it's getting kind of translucent, so you can see through the paper, the type. There's nothing printed on there, so it looks quite milky and fresh if you see it in real life. So again, this is like you want to be something French, and you also should try to be French to the maximum. Really try to get that European feeling right. So now I'm coming back to the beginning. As a young designer or starting student or starting designer, it's always like our task for me, in my view, is like to solve problems and then add perspective. So that's your added value. So that was my talk. Thank you for listening, and I hope very much to see you in real life next time. Make this bigger. And well, if anyone has questions, you can go on our website, biocelsius.com, and there's a contact email. If you have questions or want to talk to us, you can just send us an email or something. Happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.